Okay, welcome everyone to this live stream. I'm Bold Like a Leopard, of course, hosting my friends. We have Afikoman and Zarathustra Serpent. You can find his channel in the chat, or actually, I put it in the description. So he runs a channel, was a deal with mostly philosophy, things like that.
Pop culture stuff like that.
And the one time I think I was on one stream with Zarathustra on the Johniversity channel regarding the 9/11 attacks and the dancing Israelis. So I think that's the only time I've been on a stream with him. So the reason that we did this chat today is sort of a reaction to a stream that both of them were on this past Sunday with Johniversity on his Israeli channel Factualia, or his Hebrew language channel, I should say. And most of that discussion was grounded in the issue of how best to talk about the Israeli side and perspective, as independent creators. I believe that was the topic. And it was, in my opinion, listening to it, of course, it was in Hebrew, but listening to it for about 2 hours, it was a lot of bitterness and, wet blanket Debbie Downer stuff. So I'd like to pitch the ball over to Ophir. You can take it over, Afikoman. Tell us exactly what the whole issue was.
Well, it's a big issue, so it's hard to know where to start. My general sense is that in the West, the kind of leftist slash Muslim Brotherhood agenda won over the perspective, and in the West, Israel is badly perceived or poorly perceived on the whole. Israelis are also in a kind of a bubble where they are very concentrated on their own internal affairs, and they're not, there are many exceptions to this, but in general, they're not aware of how they are perceived in the world. And I think that's bad. Truth is always good. And I think Israelis should do more to improve this perception, because the governmental bodies that are supposed to be doing something about it don't seem to be doing it well, or just not as effective as we would want them to be. So that was the root of it. And I thought that people like Zarathustra, like you, like Johnny, anyone who knows a bit more about the topic could find ways to communicate facts, which are not being heard too often in the media. And listening to, people like Sargon and the Academic Agent and Stephen Crowder and Dave Rubin, and all those prominent names on YouTube, they don't really discuss the issue. And when they do, it's very misguided, and it's built upon the kind of, I hate calling it that, but let's just call it the leftist agenda that is in the mainstream media, that is a bit anti-Israel, to say the least.
Not a bit.
To say the least.
Yeah. Even there's a lot of pro-Israel, but even they are they don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about Israel.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So Zarathustra, being as it is, so you still live in Israel, correct?
Yeah.
And what would you say is a central problem, first from Israeli commentators trying to, I guess, plead their case either in Europe or the US? And then what do you think is the problem of the media in those countries and the way they approach it? I'm just talking about people who are looking for a way to portray things honestly. I'm not talking about biased and clearly hostile people.
Well, I think that there's a web of lies that has been constructed around the issue of Israel, and it's very hard now to work your way out of it. When I try to do it, YouTube removes my videos, and that's a big problem. I don't know why, but that's a big problem, and I hope this video will not be removed. So for instance, I think it all begins with the misunderstanding of what, first of all, with the misunderstanding that Jews are a nation. They're not a religion. I mean, it's also a religion, but it's a religion in the sense that it's a nation that has its own religion. And when Israel defines itself as the Jewish state, it's Jewish in the national sense, not in the religious sense. So then you can have someone like, and since people don't understand that, you can have someone like Ilhan Omar coming on and saying that Israel is like Iran because it's also a theocracy which defines itself according to religion. Yeah, just like Iran is the Islamic state, Israel is the Jewish state. When in fact you don't have to be. I mean, the definition of Israel as the Jewish state is not connected to the Jewish religion, and you don't have to be of the Jewish faith to be a Jew.
Well, so can I ask a question about that? And this is an issue that comes up. So just explain briefly the role of religion in the Israeli state, because there is a rabbinate and there is a Ministry of Religious Affairs. So just for the audience, just explain how that works.
Yeah, it's not disconnected. That there is no separation of church and state in Israel, but like there isn't in the UK. But the definition of Israel as a Jewish state is not the rabbinate doesn't determine who gets to be an Israeli citizen, who gets to be considered a Jew by the state. There are people who are not considered Jews by the rabbinate, but are considered Jews by the state and do get Israeli citizenship because of it.
Well, they get citizenship, but they might have issues with their marriage or with their children.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah. Because the rabbinate, it's not a smooth resolved issue.
But the rabbinate, that's because the rabbinate has control over some issues like like marriage. So which sucks, but that doesn't mean that Israel is a religious state. It just means that the rabbinate has a power over some things. And by the way, you don't have to be considered married in Israel. You don't have to go through the rabbinate. There are other ways. The state of Israel will recognize your marriage. First of all, if you get married abroad. Secondly, or if you get married by common law, if you live together, you are considered married by the court and by the state. So it's not that the rabbinate determines who is Jewish. So the rabbinate does have some power that we as atheists are kind of have a problem with it, and I'm sure that it will change eventually. And that sucks, but that doesn't mean that Israel is a religious state. And that doesn't mean that its definition as a Jewish state is based on the Jewish religion.
Okay, so going back to the original question after my tangent there. So you're saying that there's this sort of there's a web of disinformation, but what I also see are communication problems with the Israeli government, or not just the government, but certain advocates, and they come and they use a lot of outdated and sort of irrelevant points to defend the position nowadays. And I say irrelevant, for example, when I hear people that they go to especially these gatherings here in the States. So you might not be familiar with it. I'm sure Afikoman, you might see some of these over in England, but I'm not quite sure. They have mostly the advocacy taking place through gala dinners and through VIP visits and things like that. So the issue that I'm seeing is that it's mostly the type of advocacy that was right for the 1980s and not for the 19 and not for the 21st century.
Yeah, and also it was right for mass media, not for social media.
Right. So there's Arjun. Arjun is in the chat. He's from Calcutta. So he's saying, why do devout Jewish groups in Israel get exemptions from military service in Israel? So he asked you guys. I know the answer, but you can go ahead, either of you.
Well, they got an exemption. So it was kind of it was a deal with the state. We have to remember that the ultra Orthodox did not like the idea of a Jewish state. They believed that we should wait for the Messiah before we form our own state. So basically, to appease them, to get them on board, they did get some power. The power of the rabbinate is also because of that. Now, back then they were weakened. They are just becoming stronger because they have a demographic. They have a lot of children. Yes, so demographics. So they are growing in number, and those things which back then were seen as okay, so a few people will not serve in the army, are becoming increasingly becoming a bigger problem.
I should add that they didn't want to be part of the whole thing, so nobody wanted them to be part of it. You don't want people who are against your idea to be fighting for your army anyway. So, that's the history of it. Today, some of them do serve. So the whole thing is becoming a bit more dynamic, I believe. Zarathustra probably knows more than I do.
There are changes, and I think they are slowly integrating, and because of that, I don't. There's a need to rock the boat, but just let things happen naturally, evolve naturally. So we accept those. I at least, and a lot of people like me accept those things without really pushing now for change, for an immediate change.
I think also this is one of the things that Israel is actually quite good at, is allowing all sorts of groups to live. We have the Jews, the Samaritans, also minorities most people don't know anything about, that managed to maintain their own civilization or culture, and the state kind of accepts the way of life in all sorts of deals that they've done. Again, Zarathustra is more knowledgeable about this than I am, but the reality of it is that with most of them there is peace, and most of them are quite happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one example. A couple of years ago, I went to celebrate with the Hebrew Israelites. It's a Black American group. In the US, there are factions that are actually quite anti-Semitic, and they are the ones who are attacking Jews now because they believe that they are the real Jews. Some of them immigrated to Liberia because they believe, they believe that they are the real Jews of the Bible, and they went back to and that Africa is the real, and they didn't really make it there. So some of them then moved to Israel, and Israel accepted them, thinking that they are probably Jews, but then they realized that it's actually kind of a Christian sect, and so then they were denied entry, but still a few thousands of them, now there are tens of thousands, remain living in Israel. And it was a problem because they were quite anti-Semitic. Again, they think that we are, they're saying that we are imposters. But they integrated, and the children went to the army eventually, and are now going to and they are basically now becoming a form of Judaism. Again, not by faith. It's more Christian than Jewish, but they have their own thing.
By nation.
They celebrate.
Sorry, by nation they're becoming Jewish.
Yeah, by nationality they're becoming Jewish. They have their own, they have their own Passover. which is telling their story. So I went to celebrate that with them. It was fun. They have great music, yeah. So this is how things. The US is also very good at this. Yes, but Israel is also very good at this. Israel, I don't think there's any country that took in this big number of immigrants, relative to the size of population, as Israel did in the second half of the 20th century. Israel is the country that took in the most immigrants, and most of these immigrants came from non-democratic countries. They came from the Arab countries. They came from former Soviet Union, from Ethiopia and other places of Africa, and they all became
New Jersey.
Yeah. They all
the Wild West.
they all integrate and becoming part of the Israeli democracy. So Israel is actually quite good at that, and people Israelis like to complain about their country because they're Jews and they like to kvetch. But I think actually Israel is a great success story.
It is. Where's the noise coming from? There's a whose microphone is doing that? Can you hear the noise occasionally?
It might be me.
Oh, okay.
I'm drinking my coffee here, so sorry. So in any case, talking about the discussion on Sunday, there was a huge debate over where to devote efforts in order, like Johniversity is a channel that he is A, an atheist, B, he's a Israeli living abroad, and he had been trying to put together videos for several years in order to, I guess, rebut videos by other creators that are anti-Israel. I don't think that's the only subject of his channel. He does a lot of other things, but there's a clear sense of frustration, and there came up the topic of how much it's worth investing in trying to get dialogue with big YouTubers, specifically with Sargon of Akkad, who I know that Afikoman watches him, and essentially what Johniversity was saying was, yeah, that's a huge waste of time. He said that Sargon of Akkad is a clown. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. His viewership isn't that big. And watching that, I was like thinking, that's not really accurate in my mind. The fact is, not in the United States. I think that he does have a significant viewership here. That's why he's able to come here and talk to audiences. But in terms of his influence over in the UK, especially, the fact that anytime a celebrity claims that they might watch his channel, such as Lawrence Fox, the media immediately starts to demonize that person. I don't know what Johniversity is smoking, because I think, some people might look at Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, as this lampoonish figure who had like a failed political career. But the fact is that people still see him as a huge leader in terms of what used to be called skeptical YouTube and what used to be called Gamergate, things like that. So, what's your reaction to that, Zarathustra?
Well, the thing about Sargon, he does do some. People make fun of him because he does make mistakes and does some silly things. But there are also many things that he does right, and he ends up winning all his battles. One of the things that he does right is that he's constantly promoting other voices, which he he promoted me, and through him I got many people. I became acquainted with a lot of Dave Rubin when he started, and Gad Saad and Peterson. He gave him Jordan Peterson. So he's promoting these voices, and this is the thing. It's not just one person. It's hundreds of influencers on YouTube, which are making a difference, and they're making a difference. Maybe not. We don't really feel it right now, but it's young people who are watching them, and the young people are the ones who are in 20 years, it will have an effect. I'm a scholar of pop culture. Yeah, in the 60s, most people, you'd ask them about rock and roll bands. They knew of the Beatles, and that's it. All of those bands that then, by the 80s, everybody was familiar with. All the Pink Floyds and all the Rolling Stones and all that, mostly, and the Doors and all that. Most people didn't know about them, and I see that as the same thing. So I think that it has its power. And
Absolutely. It's it's a shifting sands. It's like sorry, you have to keep making the argument. I mean, Johnny was showing a graph that barely moves, but my point is, it's a constant battle. You're never going to win this war, but you have to keep defending your territory, and you have to defend the truth. And Israel is not always right, and it's not always perfect. But the picture that is painted by the mainstream media in the West has been frustratingly false for 30 years at least. To talk about Sargon, what you described is exactly right. I believe that information and flows through a process of diffusion. People discuss, they process the ideas, and society comes up with some kind of consensus. When the consensus or the zeitgeist keeps on shifting based on all these conversations, and there's no doubt that people like Sargon are very influential. And it's not just him. I mean, we mentioned Dave Rubin. Sorry, there's a plane here. Dave Rubin is an example. Gad Saad.
There's a plane there. You better not be dancing there, Ophir.
Yes. Hold on. I have to go out.
I don't want to have to write an article defending.
Let me get my camera.
All right. Sorry.
But by the way, I spent the whole day arguing with Joe yesterday. He again about the same topic. And,
let's talk about that at a different time. In fact,
okay.
That's not.
It was quite funny, but it was the same topic in a way. Yes, Sargon is absolutely influential. If you look at the views, Johnny was saying, "Oh, it's repeat views." I mean, how many times do people watch the same Sargon video? I don't think if people come back to comment, it counts as a view. I'm not really sure. But even so, there's no doubt that he is influential, and there's no doubt that Dave Rubin is influential. I mean,
it's social media. So
yes,
I made that point that in the past that whatever Sargon says eventually gets to PewDiePie.
Well,
yes.
So what I heard with Joniversity, who's I was on his channel. I give him credit because he did have me on to talk about the dancing Israeli case, something that a lot of I was talking about getting videos pulled. A lot of the videos about that get pulled, especially even videos that I've made. I've had to try to dance around like some certain loaded terms, but the issue that I'm seeing with him is he's not reading exactly the way the media has changed, and he was talking a lot about how Fox News is so important to the re-election first of all for the election of Donald Trump in 2016, and the fact is, so I want to sort of go off on a small monologue here, and I'll let you guys get back into it in a few minutes, but the fact is, Fox News is part of it's the winner on a steadily. It's like the king of the mountain on a pile of quicksand, because a lot of these networks that for so long were making good money from cable news are really, really struggling. CNN has gone through a lot of layoffs. You see that MSNBC is going through a ratings crunch right now because a lot of them bought into the Russia Gate conspiracy theory, and instead of making their networks about news at large, just reporting the news, reporting on disasters, for example, on tornadoes and and tsunamis and things like that. Even if there were events that were much more much more disastrous at the time, in many cases they were going with headlines for their shows relating to the Russiagate conspiracy, where they were blowing up very, very mundane and in fact misleading events during that time. So as a result, a lot of their viewership started to drift away, and that trend had already started before. It was just accelerated.
Yeah,
So what I heard with John University is that he thinks that Fox News is what holds up Donald Trump, but the fact is that Donald Trump is he has like a huge feud right now with Fox News. Has had a feud with them for a while because a lot of their anchors and main personalities like Shepard Smith at the time, who's gone now, like Chris Wallace, are very openly hostile to Donald Trump. They have Juan Williams, who is a huge anti-Trump person, Geraldo Rivera on their network. They have who's that other guy? Or they have Donna Brazil, who used to be the Democratic National Committee chairwoman. She's a personality on Fox News. So Fox News is paying all of these people who are clearly not friends of Donald Trump. And it's become so apparent that a lot of these Trump supporters are drifting over to either another network, One America News, or they're watching YouTube streams, or they're watching.
yeah.
Some
I
of
mean,
them don't even watch the news at all. They'll like read Breitbart or one of these other online publications. There's The Hill, which is not even conservative. A lot of them watch that. So, and by the way, The Hill's main audience is on YouTube. So this notion that Fox News was the network that got Trump elected is ridiculous. Megyn Kelly, who had a show
yeah,
on
no,
Fox News at the time, flat out asked a question during debate accusing him of being a misogynist and despising women. And she basically used her platform on Fox News throughout that election in order to talk about how awful of a person Trump is. And then eventually, after the election, she left Fox News for a massive deal with NBC that ended up being a huge dud. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you're talking about the mainstream media, the broadcast media being where you need to go, you're not reading the trends as they are. And unfortunately, YouTube is for the reasons we were talking about with the censorship, it's also a huge problem. But he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the way the traditional media is going.
Yeah, you're correct.
yeah,
And not only that, nobody is invited him on Fox, but he was invited on Sargon. That's the difference.
yeah.
You can only speak where they let you speak. So you use what you can. It was another point I was trying
I
to
would
make.
only say to that after the Megyn Kelly Trump kind of clash that happened, I think it was back in 2015 or early 16. One YouTube channel that became famous after that was Diamond and Silk. Those two black ladies who attacked Megyn Kelly and supported Trump.
They were
And
funny. They were good.
yeah, they were very funny. And when I saw that, I said, maybe there is something to the Trump phenomenon, because if he can inspire stuff like that, creative stuff, fun stuff, then there is something in that movement that is it's a populist thing. It's a groundswell populist thing, which when you see a politician inspiring stuff that is creative and funny and fun, then it's there is something there, and this is when I actually started to think that maybe Trump is going to to be a factor, because before that he was a joke. Yeah. And Diamond and Silk. I mean, you had a lot of YouTube channels which were a lot more fun to watch than Fox News, and people were watching, and and we got Trump.
I mean, Joe Rogan, I think he gets more views than any chat show ever, no?
Yeah,
in
Joe
America.
Rogan. Speaking of shows that are considered dangerous, when he didn't even endorse Bernie Sanders. He just said
Yeah,
that if he had to choose somebody, he would probably vote for Bernie Sanders, and he didn't even make a case for it. He just said, "Oh, I think he's consistent." And what happened? Masses of Twitter journos started talking about how he's a transphobe, that it's unacceptable the things he said in the past. So they hate Joe Rogan, and
yeah,
they,
Yeah, they
because
got him more views now.
well, they probably got more views, but the fact is that they were freaking out because Joe Rogan has this huge audience, and it's not people who
yeah,
are above the age of 50. They're mostly people who are from their 20s to their 40s, and I know
yeah.
a lot of people from my professional life that listen to him, which is something that's something to think about.
Rogan,
That
yeah, Rogan is definitely more influential than Fox News.
Yes.
Um,
If you
and
can get on
has,
Rogan for 3 hours, that's more
yeah,
than the 5 minutes you get on Fox.
yeah, yeah. And this is one thing. I mean, you talked about how the Israeli spokesmen are not are not updated. Uh, I mean, on television, you only had a few minutes, so it was just talking points, and they got used to those talking points, which are basically just propaganda. Um, and they're just it's talking points. It's propaganda. It's not truth. On YouTube, you can actually speak, and you can actually lay the picture. You can and this is what should be done. I feel like I mean, first of all, the state of Israel is not updated to that, but also because of that, people like me get my videos get removed. I think it won't get removed if the state of Israel was behind me. Was not behind me, but uh, making a fuss about the fact that YouTube is not allowing Israelis to speak.
Yes. Well, maybe that's an avenue to pursue as well. Israelis should be able to speak, even if they disagree with the government, whatever their opinion is. YouTube should not dictating democracy in Israel.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not about dictating democracy in Israel. It's about not allowing Israelis to make their case,
Yes.
or to attack the haters. And
Yep.
I mean, this is basically why I'm being removed. I'm being removed because I'm bringing up the points made by basically anti-Semites, and deconstructing them and showing why they are lying. And
I watched some of them. They're very good.
yeah, and apparently this angers the YouTube robots. And then when but the problem is when you make when you appeal, there's no one to talk to.
Of course.
I've showed that I was on the Academic Agents channel with a right-wing YouTuber in Britain to speak about this stuff. The video was removed. We were talking a lot about anti-Semitism. The video and the reasons for anti-Semitism. The video was removed, and he got not a strike but a warning. And when he appealed, it was rejected, and then he turned to Google, and Google just told him, look, it was removed, so that's it. He asked him, what, I can't talk to a Jew about anti-Semitism, and I said no.
Effectively.
So
yes.
this was which creator?
Academic Agent.
Okay.
With,
I think that might have been the stream that Afikoman sent me.
Yeah. Is it possible the comments and the chat are what gets you flagged as well, or is it the video itself?
Yeah, you can get flagged for a lot. Yeah, especially for things in the chat. And
Okay,
for
so that is probably why, because there was a lot of really bad stuff going on in the chat. I mean, it was ridiculous. That's I think partly why.
well, okay, so if you want to go into that, can I like cut in again?
Yeah, go for it.
So the other issue that this is I don't know how it works with Israel, because I think that there is a difference in the way enforcement is implemented in different countries. I know, for example, in Pakistan, it's pretty ridiculous, but over here, there's a lot of NGOs or nonprofits that are, they're trying to basically say that, well, if you are getting comments that are anti-Semitic, those people need to be banned. And then that started the ball rolling, that it came down to this issue where if you have a channel where people are saying things in the chat, and there's a channel that I watch a lot that all the people in the chat are like crazy, saying like some of the most racist shit that there is. And I actually used to write for their website. And eventually it started to be like, well, we're going to ban your channel too. And I would say that the biggest problem, so if you're talking about the biggest problem for the effort in general, is these organizations like the ADL over here in the United States that say, well, the problem is that people are saying mean things, and now we're going to release these speech guides, and people who say these things are anti-Semites or racists. And we're going to, and that by association, it defines anyone who talks to them, anyone who attracts these type of people. They're also by association the same thing.
Right. The ADL are the worst because instead of speaking, allowing us to speak, believing that the truth is on our side, they're trying to shut down the debate. And that's and this is this is the whole social justice thing, which the ADL is just part of that. But the belief that the elite, this is again the change. The elite had, when it was mass media, it was basically the elite talking down to the people, and they got used to the fact that, okay, so if we are going to shape the public's mind, then we are responsible to keep a few things out of the discussion. We're going to keep certain things out of the discussion and keep the discussion within certain lines which are acceptable. And everyone who's outside of this line will not get a platform on radio, newspapers, television, and all that. Now suddenly, everybody can speak, and the elites basically are trying to. They're still in that mind that they don't understand that social media works differently. You have to, in social media, what you have to do is defeat them. Is defeat those other voices. If you believe that you have the truth, then defeat those other voices. And before they started, I felt like we were winning before they started with all this censorship.
That's right.
You would get a lot of anti-Semites, let's say, on any videos on Jews. You would have a lot of anti-Semites in the comment section. But when you looked at it, you said, okay, so a few dozen anti-Semites. Those anti-Semites are we look for every video that has something about Jews in it, and they will all flock to it. And when you look at it and we consider that this video is open to billions of people to watch, and all you get is a few dozens of anti-Semites, it's not a big deal. Actually, that's what showed me that anti-Semitism is not that big a deal in the West. I think it's getting
sorry, we should talk to Jesse Lee Peterson. Did you know him? You think you could get on his show, Zarathustra?
No, I don't know.
I don't think that would be a very fun time for Zarathustra.
I don't know. I would watch it. I find him to be just clowning. I just don't think he's.
Well, that is the whole point. I don't know if you guys have
Is-
ever
is-
watched. There was an interview he did with a former cop who became like a
Yeah.
hardcore leftist, and it was one of the funniest videos I've ever seen.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
Oh my God, Ophir, you would go nuts. You would laugh so hard because the guy
Yeah.
was like so annoyed. He didn't even want to shake his hand at the end, and he got he was like clearly uncomfortable.
Well, the thing with Jesse is he's a troll, but he says a lot of truth, and it's good. I actually enjoy him. I think he's funny. He's a bit like Trump, you know. He's following in his
He
footsteps.
is funny, but not to speak too seriously on anything.
Okay.
So I wanna bring in a different element of the issue, which is the tone of a lot of the discussion by pro-Israel advocates, and I'm not tone policing here, but the issue I'm talking about is that I think that a lot of the pro-Israel advocates and Israeli celebrities are tone deaf from a cultural angle to the way that people think in other countries, especially here in the US, but I don't know how it is. You know, I don't know Israelis that live in France, so I'm not talking about that. But I'll give a very easy example. You guys might remember, maybe I'll make a separate window here, but there was the Gal Gadot video with Imagine, and
God.
so I'll let you guys react in a second. But there were so many videos about, and even the New York Times actually had an article like trashing it, where she got all these other celebrities to join in on this ridiculous video.
Terrible.
And
Communist anthem.
So the problem that I see with a lot of Israelis, because I lived there for 5 years, including the time I spent in the army there, is that a lot of them seem to think that the American culture froze in like 1973 or something.
That's right.
And a lot of them think, oh, you know, John Lennon. He said, because John Lennon, of course, wasn't American anyway. He was English. But the fact is that if you ask a lot of Americans, who's like the ones who are old enough to remember who he is, a lot of them think like John Lennon was just like like kind of a creepy celebrity himself. You know, obviously there's a lot of Beatles fans. I'm not talking about them, but there's plenty of people who would say that, you know, first of all, regardless of his political beliefs, there was the whole issue of him, you know, leaving his first wife for Yoko Ono, who many people consider to be, you know, a mentally ill person. And the fact that the Imagine song is one of the most played and cliched songs ever. But in Israel, I do remember that there's still people who are young, or at least they were my age at the time, that all they listened to was progressive rock from the 70s or earlier. And they think that when you go to the U.S., everybody else is, because Pink Floyd was such a huge band over there, and they automatically identify English language music as being universal. So they talk about the Dark Side of the Moon album, and they'll talk about the Wall, or you know, what's another good, King Crimson. You guys remember that band King Crimson?
Yes.
So nobody knows who King Crimson is in the United States. Nobody.
Yes.
Nobody. So people.
This is the Israeli bubble. This is a thing.
It's bizarre.
I find that most definitely young Israelis today don't have any idea about all of that.
Okay, but I'm saying that there were bands there. There was, and when there were
bands, there is something about what Bold is saying. I know what he's talking about.
So when Gal Gadot makes a video like
there is something like that. Yes,
she is trying to project the Israeli perception of the way culture is in the rest of the world, or especially in the United States. What's that?
I don't think so, because Gal Gadot was simply inspired by a video that she saw she saw an Italian playing Imagine from his balcony.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, let's sing that. It was it was awful. Millionaires singing Imagine was absolutely a disaster. But look, she was the only Israeli on the video. Why didn't the other celebrities say anything?
I think she was the one who organized it.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was the one who organized. Yeah. So, but yeah,
I think
mean,
I think there's a tiny bit of truth in what Bold is saying, but it's not the key
yeah.
here.
Look,
Yeah.
no, in Israel, culture used to be pop culture used to be a few decades behind in Israel. I think that since social media came in,
Yeah.
it's a lot better now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find that young people today, Israelis, are more in tune with what is going on.
I mean, Gal Gadot is not exactly typical Israeli, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people don't know that. People
I know.
People remember that. Like, I remember when I lived over there.
Well, it's like thinking that Michael Jackson is a typical American or something, you know.
But Michael Jackson, if you go to many countries, like if you go to South Asia, I mean, what are the most popular artists that are from the United States? Some, in many countries it is Michael Jackson, even today.
Oh yeah.
So you have to, like, I'm not saying that she's the typical Israeli. I'm saying that perception defines reality. Perception for her, perception of American culture. And I do think I think that the Imagine song is no accident, because the Italians were singing a fuckload of songs, and she picked that one. So the issue is that many people, and I agree that with Zarathustra that maybe it's changed because of the greater accessibility. You don't have to rip files off of Kazaa or Napster anymore like we did when I was a kid. But the greater accessibility has reduced that cultural wall that has people frozen in a bygone era. But there's still a lot of people who still think that Americans would look at like a video like that as something, or a song like that as something that would be inspiring, when there was a video only 5 years ago, and I hate to invoke him, but Ben Shapiro. So he broke down all the reasons that the Imagine song is ridiculous and stupid and
that's right, yes.
And it went viral, and a lot of people agreed. They're like, "What? Why is this such a great song?" So
it sounds nice. That's why
it's a good record. You can think that the message is stupid, but the record itself is good.
The issue that I think is coming up is that there's a huge cultural gap between Israelis and other countries around the world, and it's become bigger, not because of Israel's fault. It's become bigger because this global culture was a huge dud. I think both of you would agree that this attempt to globalize the economy also led to an attempt to globalize culture, perhaps in the same theme as John Lennon was saying in the song Imagine there's no borders, all those statements. So
yeah,
the message of the song, while people aren't even able to fly or drive certain places, people are cloistered in their houses. So she should have picked she could have picked Baby Got Back instead, talking about her ass, and people would have probably liked it better. So
I think we moved on from that as well. The big asses thing is also in the past now.
It's behind us, you would say.
Yeah,
the behind is behind us.
Yeah, I think today is more about eyes than the whole tits and ass thing that was around since the 50s. I think in the internet, now that we are in this kind of what I call the cyber period, when we look at people, we see people, YouTubers. You see them from the waist, from the bust up, and it's more about the eyes now. This is the big
interesting.
Yeah. There are other reasons why eyes are now the sexiest thing. One of them, by the way, is the mainstreaming of blowjobs. which eyes are important for. But yeah, and the whole anime and all that. But yeah,
we're definitely going to be flagged with this video.
Interesting. I think this is a topic worth
Anti-Semitic
researching.
blowjobs.
Yeah. Well, look, this is the stuff that I'm researching. Yeah, I'm a pop culture. Yeah. So yeah.
So I think let's go another 20 minutes most, because I think it's been it's almost been an hour, right? But
Ophir, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up in the talk with Johnny?
I mean, there are many topics we could go into and examples of lies and how we could debunk them, but I don't know if this is the time in 20 minutes to do so. I just wanted to put out this message to encourage people to be talking more with people in the UK, in the US, Canada, Australia, all the English language speaking, the English speaking countries. And if someone speaks French, speak to the French and so on. I think more dialogue would
Serbian,
help.
Especially Serbian.
Well, Russian would help. Any language really. Of course, English I think is the most important one, because.
But I don't know, but because Israelis are quite cosmopolitan, and they are always going around the world and all that. So I think they are talking.
They are, but they're not great communicators. I can tell you. So let me give you. I don't want to like pile on to both of you, because I talk to Ophir a lot, and Ophir, we are I think we've known each other for like a couple years already. But let me give you a positive example of, like, Arjun is in the chat. I don't know if he knows this channel. There's a guy named Sham Sharma who's Indian. And he puts together amazing videos defending the Modi, not Modi, but the Hindutva philosophy, and breaking down misperceptions of Hindutva and the Hindu people in both Indian and Western media, as well as on the American left concern. And most people don't even think about that, like, Hindus over here in the US are kind of an afterthought. Even in a city like mine, there's a lot of Indians living here who are working here as professionals, doctors, and especially in computer science. So this guy has a channel where he does everything in a very crisp, well-edited manner, because he has a good delivery. I don't know of any, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just can't think of one at the moment, but I don't know of any Israeli that has a very crisp delivery on camera in English. So it's sort of an issue that, unfortunately, when you see there's certain ways that different cultures get perceived, when they cross borders. And it's not only the Israelis, like Germans, when they speak in English, sometimes have a hard time. The accent can be like very, grating, because they have like much more guttural sounds. Russians also, who's another example. For whatever reason, a lot of the Arabs too, but for some reason the Lebanese speak very good English. So I'm just saying that this is a broader issue than just what you're saying. In some cases, it's just the way people hear you.
That is true. I mean, there are very good communicators in Israel. I mean, I can send you a link of from an organization called Im Tirtzu, which is an organization that is trying to do similar things. It's kind of right wing, I suppose. They had a video out yesterday and the day before, and the guy doing the interviews certainly can speak and communicate. Very pleasant. I think he must have been educated in the US as well, judging by his accent. I don't know his name, but I'll send you the link. There's many good communicators, but I don't think a channel that advocates for Israel is going to make any difference, because why would anyone watch it? I wouldn't watch a channel like that about Argentinian affairs, something advocate. You know what I mean? I think that the most important thing is to be part of a discussion, and use the discussion to make your points when it's appropriate.
I mean, if people want to see an example of, I think the only video of mine on the subject that is still on is called Secular Talk on Anti-Semitism, in which I criticize Kyle Kulinski and
Very good one.
his views on Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and show how basically he is just accepting anti-Semitic lies and spreading them further. Yeah, so if any one of your viewers wants to watch that, just to learn a little bit about why I'm saying that there's a web of lies, I explained a little bit there.
There's an industry of lies, not just
Yeah.
a web. It's actually a business, and there's a book called The Industry of Lies that talks about this topic. If anyone is interested, there's also lectures by Dor Benimini about this online on YouTube. Various presentations he did. I mean, there are many people.
Is that
Sorry?
video? Oh, here we go. So I'll put that video in the chat. No, keep going, Ophir.
Do you know Dor Benimini?
I probably heard
it.
Did he used to write for Ynet?
It's possible. He's a very
He was on the Yedioth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so well-known writer, journalist.
Journalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's also if people want to understand about the Middle East.
Wow, you have a lot of deleted videos, buddy. You have. This is his playlist.
Yeah.
This is how I found it. So Zarathustra, he has a 9-video playlist, and 3 of them are deleted, or were they deleted by you or by YouTube?
It's a playlist about Israel, right?
Right.
Yeah, my videos on Israel get.
And he's very mild. He doesn't say anything provocative, in my opinion, at least. It's all very mainstream kind of talk. It's just factual, very interesting stuff. Whether you agree with him, with Zarathustra or not, his videos are interesting and they're not provocative, in any offensive way. Not to me, anyway. So I think someone knows Dor Benimini. Yeah, Mordechai Kedar or Moti Kedar does a very good lecture about the Middle East, explaining the various conflicts there. One of the big issues that I mentioned to Westerners is that the borders on the map are not the real borders, and if you want to understand the Middle East, you need to look at the map of languages. And when you look at how languages are spread, you understand where people are and where the conflicts are. For a start,
I mean, if you want to talk about the lies, many people in the world believe that Israel is built on Palestinian land. Which there was never such a thing, a Palestinian land. There was land that belonged to Palestinians, but there wasn't a Palestinian nation or Palestinian country.
But then
So there's a question. Kyle Kulinski represents an interesting question. Why do American Jews hate Israel? I think Kyle Kulinski might be Polish Catholic, or he's an atheist. I don't think he's Jewish, him specifically.
No.
But there are other people who, like Katie Halper, who is in the TYT universe. She's actually one of the women who's she featured Tara Reid, who is the woman who's accusing Joe Biden. So she is extremely anti-Israel. She's Jewish. There's also, of course, older people like Chomsky and Finkelstein. And
you have to be anti-Israel to be part of the left today in America, really.
Well, yeah, I would respond to that. Speaking as an American, why do so many American Jews hate Israel? I would say that there was a period after the war, World War II, that there was a huge effort for American Jews to either blend into the rest of society or do the opposite and become and so because so many of them lived in parts of the country that are closer to academia, like in Boston and New York City. So they gradually started to absorb more of the beliefs and thinking of those institutions as opposed to remaining grounded in in more of their family culture and things like that. So you'll see some of them, they'll have cultural attachments to Judaism. Obviously, Noam Chomsky didn't change his name to, Dermot O'Shaughnessy or something, like a completely un-Jewish name. So he's obviously not hiding the fact that he's Jewish. But what they'll do is they'll try to supplant their Jewish beliefs and have them replaced by beliefs of other philosophies. And it's not only leftism. There's other people of completely different persuasions, like Yaron Brook, who I think is a different issue, but he would probably consider himself not a Jewish thinker at all. He's completely a Randian objectivist. So it's all but there's a certain issue where Noam Chomsky, if you look at his career and his opposition to the Vietnam War,
he just hates America. Whoever hates America, Noam is on their side.
Right.
It's really simple.
So this issue where people are saying, well, why is it that these American Jews are hating Israel? I would say that it's this sort of trend that many of them have gone through where they don't have what's that?
Simple answer to that.
They are anti-nationalists and
they're anti-West as well.
Yeah, no, look, for the Jews, like we said, the Jewish identity is originally a national identity. Then, when the Jews were exiled from their country, it was the religion that maintained the identity, but it also kept the national identity because the religion, the Jewish religion, maintained many practices and many rituals that maintained the Jewish national identity. So then came the Zionists, and we returned to Israel. So now the Israelis have the national identity. Basically in diaspora, which is mostly the United States, the Jews have their identity is mainly a religious identity, because those who have a more national identity will immigrate to Israel. Now, the Jews who just become atheists are basically detached both from the religious identity and the national identity. And then to maintain the Judaism, the only thing that remains is this idea of what is known as tikkun olam, which literally means fixing the world. And then they adopt all of those ideologies that are trying to basically fix the world and bring utopia. And nowadays, it's all this leftist idea of a universal society, which is against any kind of nation states and all that. And this is why they are opposed to Zionism. They are opposed also to the nation states in their countries, which is something that I brought up the point that we need to condemn, because Jews, it is wrong for Jews who sit in America or in England or in France to try to undermine the nation state in their country, because if the nation state, there is no democracy that is not a nation state. You can't. I believe that you can't have a democracy if you don't have a nation state, because the nation is the thing that holds people together and allows for difference of opinions.
Exactly.
So if they dismantle the nation state and the whole thing collapses, those Jews have a place to escape to. They can escape to Israel, but the people who will be left behind, the French, will have no place to go, other place to go to, and I think they have a right to be pissed about it, and when I'm hearing people from France and from Europe, from the United States, being angry about those Jews, I think they are right.
What they need to understand is that Israel is angry about those Jews too. The way I see it, anyone who is anti-Israel is actually anti-West.
Yeah. Chomsky is persona non grata in Israel. He's not allowed.
Oh yeah. The way I say it is that anyone who is anti-Israel is anti-West, and the anti-Israel part is just the tip of the iceberg, or the shitberg is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, and look at someone like Bernie Sanders. he was asked during during the campaign now a few months ago. He was asked about his Jewish. Does he feel Jewish? What's his connection to his Jewish heritage? And he said, "Well, there's a great connection. The Holocaust has taught me to basically have my, those values that I have." And I really didn't like this answer, because the Jewish heritage is the thing that Jews created, not the thing that was done to us. The Holocaust was something that was done to us.
Yeah, this is
by
not
other people.
Jewish culture. It's
Yeah, it's not.
It's-
If that's the thing that you go to when you are asked about your Jewish heritage, then that's not
very odd.
not a real Jew. That's really.
Yeah, I want to say
Yeah.
I really do agree.
It
I agree with Zarathustra because
it also fits the stereotype that Jews are all about the Holocaust, when in fact most Jews don't think about it all the time. Or, one day a year, you do think about it. But.
Well, so I actually, I think I wrote about this 2 years ago. I'll send this to Zarathustra offline, but I wrote a blog post on my personal blog about how the Holocaust, when you use the Holocaust as the main point of Jewish identity, you focus on the most negative, most abominable period in the nation's history, and you're also diminishing the times of let's think about some of the more interesting times in Jewish history. There's antiquity with of course the period with the two kingdoms and the Maccabees and the time of Herod. Now, I'm not saying all of those were good, and because the time of Herod was a pretty crazy time, but yeah, you can go back to then. You can go back to the time of the Rambam in Egypt. You can go to the time of the Spaniard Jews. You can go to the times of the Jews of Prague, right? And there's a lot of problems with those, but it's a much broader history. And I've said the same thing, Zarathustra. It's amazing to hear somebody say it in the same way as I have, but where I've said, you've had thousands of years of history, and they're focusing on about 12 years of it, 12 years of which we've basically seen so much focus on it in terms of movies and things like that. And there was the same thing was said, if you don't know, by Snoop Dogg, believe it or not, concerning slavery. When there was a new movie about slavery, he said, "Why do we have to keep doing movies about slavery?
Yes.
When what's with all this negativity?" And this is like, if you listen to Snoop Dogg's public pronouncements, he rarely says anything very thoughtful. But that was pretty amazing hearing it from him that. This is a guy, he's living the dream. He can smoke weed all day and make tons and tons of money and sell records that are mediocre and things like that. He doesn't have really, reason to dwell on slavery as much. Obviously, you want to commemorate it. You want to commemorate the issue and the problem of slavery, not just of the 19th century and prior to that, but even today. But you can't move forward if you only dwell on things that happened in the worst times in your history.
Exactly.
Yeah. Black Americans had the 20th century such a great cultural, flowering of Black America and this stuff at the time, the pop culture, and Jews as well. I mean, the part of what Jews did for in the 20th century with culture. Of course, Jews have done culture in every century, but all of that, so why aren't you focused more on celebrating that? And then, once a year we commemorate the Holocaust and we remember which is important. But that's it.
I think it's a good discussion to have, and I'd love to see more of this happening. And I do think that reaching out to, we just use the name Sargon, but it's all those people, like the academic agent and Sargon, and the Britisher is another good one. You might want to try to talk to him. I don't know if you know the Britisher.
But
Talking
look
about
what
me
happened.
too.
I don't want to be responsible for giving them strikes.
So don't say the magic word anti-Semitism for start.
I don't think that's the
You don't think so?
No. I think look, if it was the video, it's the fact that maybe academic agent brought up some of the some anti-Semitic.
Here's my
topics.
idea what you should do, Zarathustra, and I'd love to be on Sargon too, to talk, like, especially around 9/11, when that comes up again in September. But because that's, there's areas where I focus. Obviously, there's areas where the two of you focus, but I would say that Sargon is growing pretty good on BitChute, and what you could do is he could promote podcasts with you on, like, he could do the promotion on YouTube, say that he's having a discussion with you, and then he would link to the podcast. That's the best idea I can come up with right now, or
I think it's a great idea.
Or do it on SoundCloud or something.
Yeah, you could say that, YouTube won't let us discuss anti-Semitism, so we're moving.
And it's not that uncommon now, because there's a channel that I've been watching that doesn't do anything on YouTube anymore in terms of live streams. They do it all on DLive.
Maybe what's his name? Sticks and Hammer. He's also quite influential.
But he's quite anti-Israel.
He is anti-Israel, but he's not anti. He would hear people out.
Yeah,
he's had a pro-Israel guy on his channel before, which might be why he did have a guy, but he might be like, well, I've already discussed this before, so I don't know if you could get him to do it, but I think certainly he would be fine, or who's another person. Maybe Mr. Reagan or No Bullshit.
Yeah, Mr. Reagan.
Yeah, but there's. I would say Sargon of Akkad is a good person to focus on.
Look, one thing is, I realize this web of lies that I'm talking about is so big that I went on the academic agent. I talked for like 2 hours or more than 2 hours, and I didn't get to half of it.
Well, that's what I keep saying. It's a big war, and you're just one soldier, but you still have to keep fighting.
Would he have
can
had
never
you
say
back
everything.
Again? Would he have you back again, Zarathustra?
I don't want to do that to him. I don't want to do that to him.
Okay.
Why? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would say still that they should do the promo on YouTube, and they should feature the actual stream somewhere else. And I would definitely, you heard my discussion on 9/11. You were in it, so that's something I definitely want to talk about more. But there's not as much interest in it. There was more interest when the whole Groyper War thing was happening, but it's going to crop up again around 9/11 this year, because there's plenty. This is like an issue that's not going to die, but
I think, to be fair, you know a lot about many more topics. You could kick the butt on many topics, Bold.
I could, but that was one that there's actually, so there's stories that I've been working on concerning, and I'm not talking about Israel though. So sorry to inject other stuff into here, but there was a story that I wrote about a network here in the U.S. here in Baltimore, where they are clearly having ties to the Venezuelan government, and the Venezuelan government that's under deep sanctions at the moment, and I've written a major article on it detailing their long-standing financial ties and the fuzzy accounting about it. So there's certainly areas where I'd like to focus, but my interests don't necessarily join with the interests of other people. People like, I don't think Sargon would necessarily be interested in talking about the Venezuela issue and the way that because Venezuela, why am I saying this? Not because I want to limit the freedom of speech for people who support Venezuela, which I think is ridiculous, but still. But they're using the money of Venezuelan people who are basically living hand to mouth and using it to defend the country overseas through these organizations that cloak their ties to the Venezuelan government, which is it's more egregious, I think, than institutions that support Israel. A lot of them are done more with private money. Doesn't necessarily mean everything they say is true. Like AIPAC, for example, no. AIPAC, for example, I'd say I have heavy criticism for them. Disagree with them on a lot. I don't think Israel, though, is running AIPAC because much of AIPAC is done through private funding. So I would say that there's certainly a problem. I can sympathize with you, not just with regards to this topic where you can't really get out your message.
Yeah, actually, when I think about it, maybe I'll just upload videos to BitChute on that topic, because BitChute has a lot of anti-Semites on it. It has all the people who can't talk on YouTube are talking on BitChute, and it has a lot of extreme right wingers, and maybe.
Well, they're on there, but I'll tell you what. When I uploaded the video of our stream with Joniversity on it, I think I only got 2 or 3 comments, and they couldn't comment because when I brought forward issues that are documented in the FBI file and elsewhere that show exactly how little evidence there was against the 5 suspects, what were they going to do in the chat? In the comments, they're just going to call me a Jew liar, right? That doesn't address what I said. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't refute any of the points. So I don't care. Like I learned a long time ago, who cares if these assholes want to comment? They can comment all they want. In fact, I welcome their.
No, I want them to.
Yeah.
I want them to watch.
How about we do at some point, like going through a list of nonsense that he said, and we debunk stuff just for fun?
I've done for things I've put up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, we could do one together just for fun. We could make a list, and each one of us.
I actually wrote an entire video which I called "Shit Anti-Semites Say," and then I didn't upload it. I didn't record it because I said they will just remove it. And
so what I would say,
I just think.
What I would say, I would say we should do it this way. So we would if we could find comments that you guys have seen, we would all take like a list of them, prep them, and then we would make a podcast about it using our research on them. That way it would be faster.
Yes, exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. I started doing something like that ages ago, but I had no way to deal with it, So yeah, that would be fun anyway to do.
All right, I think this is good. It's almost 12 here, but
cool.
So Zarathustra, I have your channel in the description. Is there any other site you want me to promote from your channel, or where can people find you?
Go to my channel. That's look, I have a book that I wrote that's about Nietzsche, and I have another book that I'm working on. But go to my channel, and everything is on there. And
Afikoman, you want people to find you anywhere? You just want to stay off?
I'll just recommend your channels, Zarathustra and Bold. Both very interesting.
All right, so that's about it for today. Glad to talk to both of you. Glad that you both wanted to come on. And we'll see about other projects. I don't do as many videos as I used to because I do more writing than ever. But I'll definitely be in touch. And I welcome anybody to comment and subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can subscribe to me also. Let me put up all the links, or at least the.
I just one little thing to add is that a discussion like this is not as much work as preparing a video. So it's kind of effective if you actually go through points and.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so everybody, please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on BitChute, Minds.com, and Subscribe Star on GAB. It's @Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later.